Welcome to Fox 55's Green and Gold Gridiron.
The Green Bay Packers bounce back from that loss against Buffalo with a win at Tampa Bay 20-3, and they are in the playoffs for the 6th season in a row. Thanks so much for joining us on Fox 55's Green and Gold Gridiron. I am Brian Groff alongside former Packers and Badgers offensive lineman Bill Ferrario, and yes, we are celebrating Christmas this week.
Merry Christmas, Brian.
Merry Christmas.
Excited to be here. Nice win. Came back after that rough game the week before to a nice win. Started off a real defensive battle, and then got to see Eddie Lacy open it up and started really running through those holes and gaining some yards.
I like the vest. This is Bill's idea, and we decided to make a whole show of this.
You know, this is sort of just what I wear around the holiday season, little Packers, little Christmas, Put them both together, and this is what you come out with.
Exactly. Of course, we're all in good, happy spirits because the Packers get that win. Aaron Rodgers battling the flu coming into the game against the Buccaneers, but still, even with that calf strain, an efficient 31 of 40, 318 yards and a touchdown in this game.
It was nice to see what Aaron did out there. I mean, the flu, I think every player encounters a cold, a cough, flu, stomach ache from time to time. The calf concerned me a little bit more, but I tell you what, when one player has a weakness, the rest of the team have to pick it up, and Eddie Lacy and the offensive line definitely raised the standards and got the running game going this week.
You could see what they did with the heel, with putting the pad in there, and had to change the game plan just a little bit, kind of keep him inside the pocket. But over on the other side of the ball, that defense came out and did not allow a touchdown. They started the game forcing 5 straight 3-and-outs.
They did. I keep talking about the defense, and like I said, coming into this season, I was very concerned about them. But week after week, they've been impressing me, impressing Packer Nation, and they've been playing well. They've been playing real solid.
And Jana Wimmer now joins us, and she's in the festive Christmas spirit as well, and has a little bit more on Aaron Rodgers and what he dealt with on Sunday.
Yeah, you guys talked a little bit about Aaron Rodgers and his calf injury. Well, after the game, Rodgers talked about the injury and whether he thought he'd be ready to play this Sunday. We take a closer look in this week's Breaking the Huddle. So obviously a big game on Sunday, and guys, it looks like Aaron Rodgers should be good to go.
Yeah, we wouldn't doubt that, would we? Packers playing the Lions for the right to be the NFC North Division champions. We have so much to talk about in this show, and also want to highlight Eddie Lacy in another fantastic season that he's had, 1,000 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns, first Packer to do that in his first 2 seasons. We have our special guest coming up, and he goes back not only with Bill Ferrario and the Packers, but even further back with our analyst, Keith Roerdink. Much more to come here on Fox 55's Green and Gold Gridiron. Thanks so much for joining us on our Christmas week, Fox 55 Green and Gold Gridiron. I'm Brian Groff, Bill Ferrario, and as always, our special analyst, Keith Roerdink from PackerReport.com.
Glad to be here, Brian. I'm not so sure about the sweater. Thank you. It was always good to be here after a win, and I don't know if people thought it was going to be a blowout, but that was a pretty scrappy 2-win team.
And the guy that really dressed down this evening, we'll let you introduce him because you have a connection.
Yes, allow me to introduce the man to my left here, my former high school football teammate, 17-time track All-American at La Crosse. After his eligibility was used up, he went out for football for 1 year. All he did was average 25 yards a catch and almost 25 yards on kick returns, right?
I guess.
Not too bad. 6th-round pick of the Packers in 1994. Had over 900 yards, 3 seasons. Led him in receiving in 2000. Led the NFC with a 17.3 yard per catch average in 2001. I've done my homework on Bill. 11-year career that he finished up with Detroit and Tampa. We don't want to focus on that too much, but Bill Schroeder, everybody, number 84.
Thank you, Keith.
All that right off the top of his head.
And now we got to go to break.
Exactly. We'll be back after this. So you guys you played football together in high school, but you were also with the Packers when you were drafted by Green Bay.
Correct.
Yeah, and that was kind of a fun story. So I was helping out for the 1994 draft, and I know you and I have talked about this story, but my job was to be in a small little closet sort of a room with a copy machine. I would get a call from the Packers assistant PR director, Jeff Blum, every time a player got picked. We're in the 6th round. I think you were the 3rd pick of the 6th round. Jeff comes into the room. I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, oh, you don't have a bio on this guy. And I was like, well, who is it? And he goes, some guy out of La Crosse, Bill Schroeder. And I'm like, Billy Schroeder from Sheboygan? I'm like, we drafted Bill Schroeder. And he's like, you know him? And I get down there, and you do your conference call with the team, and you're all calm and collected, and Lee Remmel picks up the phone. He's like, and Lee's voice, like, Bill, we have someone that wants to talk to you, a former classmate of yours. And I pick up the phone, and the first thing you said was, am I still on speakerphone? And I'm like, No, I took you off speakerphone. You're like, I got drafted by the Packers. it was very cool. I'm sure it had
was
to be
surreal.
awesome.
You could verify all this?
Oh, it was surreal. I mean, I was sitting there in my apartment at La Crosse, and I was just floored. I mean, getting drafted by the Green Bay Packers, the greatest gift next to my 2 children I've ever had. I mean, everybody dreams of playing professional sports one way or another, but to be blessed to play for the Green Bay Packers, unbelievable.
I know this is an exciting night for Keith, so we have one more thing, if we indulge. He's got this photo.
I did dig up an
and
old
a quick
photo.
little background here of you two on the field at the same time. Look at that.
There you go. I'm number 66.
Bill is number 11, number 75. Now, had this picture been taken a second later, I know it looks like Bill's going to take him down all by himself without any help, but if I remember correctly, a split second later, he's about to break away from Bill, and I unleash just a decleating hit on that poor Green Bay East running back. I know the picture.
I remember that too.
Thank you, Bill.
And Bill, if you haven't noticed, Keith's a little bit excited that we finally got you on the show.
I've been waiting.
And he could talk about how he blocked or played on the same high school.
yeah,
Yeah, he did. He blocked for me too.
He's-
I was quarterback. He was an
he's
offensive lineman.
Extremely excited about this, as we all are to have you on the show.
Now, as we move forward, as part of your introduction, that big 2001 season, was it because you were a teammate of Bill Ferrario's?
Well, having another guy from Wisconsin there, it's very exciting. I mean, I didn't know a lot about Bill other than just playing with the Badgers, but then he and I became such really good friends, and we've been doing lots of charity events and basketball games each and every year. So we spend a lot of time during the off season, you could say, together.
I think that's one of the great things you talk about, being from Wisconsin and being able to play for the franchise that everybody pulls for in this state. You're very visible in this state.
Well, I grew up in Wisconsin, and I've always been taught by my parents to make sure that you always give back. Remember where you came from, and Bill's the same way, and Jerry Wunsch, who started the Circle of Friends Foundation, I kind of piggybacked on with him many years ago when I was playing, and now we're just going strong with this foundation. So now I started my own Bill Schroeder Circle of Friends. So I sponsor all the kids from Wisconsin, and Wausau is a place where we come and basically celebrate this time with these kids. And that takes a lot of my time. My 2 children takes the other majority of my time, and the little bit that I have left, I get to work training athletes over at the House of Speed in Green Bay. So right now I've got about 50 kids in track and a handful in football.
Bill, with the game changing so much in different aspects from when we played, what do you think you'd tell a Jared Abadaris, who's a young guy from Wisconsin who's now on the Packers, to expect throughout his NFL career, or a young high school player that's coming up that wants to play wide receiver into the college ranks or NFL ranks? What do you think is different, or what do you think you'd be telling them to work on?
It's a great question. Jared was a guy who the last few years got to watch at Wisconsin, and sure enough, all of a sudden one day he's there at the House of Speed working out, and he and I got to talking, and I'm going to be able to work with him a little bit during the off season, teaching him a few of the old school stuff to help him. But a guy like Jared, he's got a great head on his shoulders. He's very smart. He works his butt off. And just staying humble. He's still a rookie, and he's got that work ethic. So the question that I would answer to all these people is, you got to work your tail off. You've got to be coachable. You can't go into this thing thinking that you know everything. And for me, coming out of La Crosse, I knew nothing. I knew how to run fast, and that was it. So I learned, let them coach you, deal with what's going to happen each and every day. Don't look forward to anything else. Just treat every day a little bit different. And when I work with my athletes, my high school athletes or college athletes, it's play every single down, play every single play in practice as hard as you can.
You know, Bill, and it's worth calling out that you played quarterback when we were at South High. You played safety. You returned punts and kicks. You were never a receiver. So, I mean, for you to go to La Crosse, do what you did in 1 year, and then have a 11-year career in the NFL and 7 years with the Packers, I mean, that's amazing. So, I mean, that's got to be an inspiring thing to be able to tell people, too, just about how to take the coaching. And I know John Gruden was there when you were there, and he was a guy that rode you pretty hard early on. But
Yeah, Gruden and I kind of go way back in the day. He doesn't like rookies, and he really didn't see eye to eye with me because I was a rookie. And, things worked out for the best because my last year when Gruden was a head coach at Tampa, he requested to have me there. and I had a tryout with 3 other younger receivers, and it wasn't even close. I mean, I blew everybody away because of my work ethic. And I knew what Gruden wanted to expect, or what he expected from me, and it's work your tail off. Just do what you can do. And for me, coming out of La Crosse, being a receiver just for that 1 year, it's be coachable. They can put you anywhere on the field. I knew I was going to be out there for special teams a ton. Any opportunity that you have, you got to make yourself seen. And you don't want to make yourself seen by getting penalties. You want to make yourself seen by making a play.
For sure.
When you look at the box score for the Packers, everybody plays. If you're active on game day, you get in there and everybody is contributing. As you look at this team going into Week 17, how do you size them up and their chances to make a good playoff run?
I think they got a great opportunity this year. I think for the most part they're healthy. In the past, they've had some downfalls with people being injured. I think I've been talking about this all year, how I would like to see Eddie Lacy get 20 touches. This isn't the media guy talking. This is me. I've wanted him to have 20 touches, and I actually think that they're holding him off. I mean, they're using Starks quite a bit, but Aaron Rodgers, I mean, what an outstanding quarterback. He's got weapons all over the place. So the offense is taking care of itself, but each and every week this defense keeps getting better and better and better, and I don't care what anybody in the media says. Peppers is phenomenal. He's not old. He used to beat the crap out of me when I'd play against him. He's still just as fast. You got Clay Matthews. You got this defense that's really looking good. They're going to be tough to beat. I think if everything just clicks normal, I don't think they're going to have a problem this year.
Once again, I love having a guest on the show that me and him see eye to eye on every single point. So
he didn't even talk about the offensive line.
Except for that sweater.
The Packers voted for their playoff captains last week. Morgan Burnett was one of them, and he's played really well. Clay Matthews, not one of the captains, yet he's played really well. So maybe some people think maybe it lit a fire. What's your take on choosing the captains before the end of the regular season, and what kind of motivation tool do you see there?
It's just designating one person or 2 people who you think should represent the person for the coin flip. I don't think a guy like Clay Matthews is going to get mad and sit there and be ticked off at all of his teammates for not voting him as the guy, because if everybody well knows if Clay Matthews isn't out there, you don't have a nucleus of this team, because he starts everything. You change that defense around, you put him anywhere on the field except at safety, he's going to make plays. And I completely agree that having him and Julius Peppers out there with guys like Morgan Burnett makes this defense really good.
We're going to turn our attention now to the Titletown topics, and we'll get into specifically in the first topic, Bill Schroeder's area of expertise. Jana, what do you have for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Jordy Nelson addressed the team in a players-only meeting that had 113 yards and a touchdown. I definitely think we should start with our guest, Bill, on this one. So, Bill, what do you think that shows about Nelson's character and ability?
It definitely shows that he's a leader of this team. He's been around here a long time. He's not the big flashy guy. You know, there's a few guys that make flashy plays. He goes out there, he makes the plays, he puts up the numbers, and he comes out there and makes another play. What happened to him 2 weeks ago when he dropped that could have been touchdown, he just comes back and makes some unbelievable plays after that. So for him to speak in front of the group, in front of the team, and make a play shows what kind of leader he is. And when somebody like that doesn't talk during the year and talks at the end of the season, listen, because what he's going to say matters.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. He isn't a real vocal guy. He's not a me first guy. Great team guy. And, I'm sure he did feel bad about that catch. I mean, that was not the reason they lost, but that was kind of the most obvious play that everybody looked at. So I think for him to kind of bring the team together, to refocus, and for the offense to do what they did as far as Jordy Nelson and the stats he put up, the game Randall Cobb had, what Eddie Lacy did, and Aaron Rodgers, again, battling both a cold and a strained calf. I mean, they went out and had, again, it wasn't a blowout, but when you look at the stat sheet at the end, I mean, this was a great offensive performance across the board.
Throughout my career, I've always witnessed 2 different types of players that talk in the locker room. One player that talks because they want to hear their own voice, and the other guy that wants to lead by example. And like Bill said, when Jordy Nelson doesn't talk all season and then he stands up and says something, you better listen up and you better go out there and follow the example that he's setting on the field.
And a week after those drops, 9 catches on 9 targets, so he really bounced back. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have topics 2 and 3 on Fox 55's Green and Gold Gridiron.
Welcome back to Green and Gold Gridiron. We are at Sconi's in Schofield, and we have former Packers wide receiver Bill Schroeder here with us. The Packers host the Lions on Sunday for the NFC North title. Detroit rallied to beat the Bears 20-14 last week. The Packers, though, they're perfect at home. What do you expect to see this Sunday?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, Detroit all season long, they've done just enough to win. There were so many games from the comeback against Atlanta to even last week. I mean, if not for the drops in that Chicago game, I think they would have lost there. But, I mean, there's no reason to think with the way Green Bay plays at home. I mean, I know Detroit's having their best season in, 10 or 11 years, and they've had talent. And I think now with Caldwell there, he's been able to kind of rein it in, at least to a point, and we'll get to some of the discipline issues later. But, I mean, Detroit's a talented team, but I think at home with everything on the line, I absolutely expect the Packers to win this game.
Being at home the way Green Bay is playing right now, I think we're peaking at the right time. We're improving on defense. Eddie Lacy's running the ball better and better on offense. I think everything's starting to click on all cylinders, and I think as long as we keep that momentum going, it's going to be a victory on Sunday.
I'm not going to go against you guys. I always get nervous when there's a lot riding on the line. When you're talking to most likely being a first-round bye, home field advantage, possibly throughout the playoffs, this is going to be the best game that you're going to see out of Detroit. But then again, it's Lambeau Field, the greatest fans in the world, playing at our place at the end of December. Man, skew out the barbecue. It's Lion season.
I like that.
And you've seen it from the other side with Detroit, and they haven't, obviously, it's been talked about over and over again, haven't won in Wisconsin since '91.
Yeah, it's completely different when you come into Lambeau Field. I'm telling you, when I was in Detroit, I had no problem playing against Green Bay in Detroit. It's home field, it's Ford Field, but when you come back to Lambeau Field and you're wearing a different uniform, it is not the same thing. When Detroit walks in there, they're going to have a chip on their shoulder because they haven't won for so long. Everybody from Green Bay knows that chip is waiting to come out, but it makes no difference. This is going to be hopefully the biggest blowout in Packer Lion history.
Topic 3.
And we're going to stick with Detroit for topic number 3. The NFL suspended Dominic Raiola after he stomped on the leg of a Bears defensive tackle. Guys, are the Lions reverting to their old ways?
I go back and forth on this, and I'm a little mixed. What happened there, I think, with that play, it's a shame. I think Raiola, a guy who I used to know pretty well, I think he's crossed the line too many times. But where I say it's a fine line is you especially on the offensive line, you want nastiness in your players. You want a guy that's going to give the extra shove, get in a guy's head. That and some of the other stuff in his past, clearly he's crossing the line. You don't want that. You can't have that.
He was one of my teammates, and he is, just like you said, he's a nasty guy, but he works his butt off. You got to know when to take the foot off the accelerator. Some of the things that the guys do in Detroit, Dominic and Sue, another perfect example, it's just dirty. You shouldn't go out there and try and hurt somebody, especially with obvious play like that. That's really bad. But like you said before, Dominic tried to get in a fight with a guy from the Badger band a few years ago. So you know what? That's what you're going to see, and that's what you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, you want a little bit of nasty, and Bill, you and I talked about this before the show. TJ Lang has a little bit of that nasty. I think Josh Sitton does, but Raiola is cheap. He's a punk. He's done this many times. I would tell him that if he was here, I would stand behind you and tell him he was a punk. But I think LaTroy Guion should be licking his chops going up against his rookie replacement. So I hope that comes back to bite him.
When I think, like we always say, how important that O-line is. Now you take a guy that's been a fixture on Detroit's O-line, you take him out of the mix, and you're putting a brand new rookie signal caller in there at center. I'm sure that's going to give him a lot of problems.
Very good. Those are our title talent topics. We will take a break. We'll come back with Bill's breakdown as well as our Fox 55 pick'ems.
What in the world? Oh, yeah, that's...
We know what was on everyone's Christmas list. It was Bill's breakdown.
Yes, it was.
So that's what we're handing out to everybody. We're going to take a look at Eddie Lacy's touchdown. Prior to the snap, Aaron Rodgers saw something in the defense. He moved Lacy from his right to his left, and you could take it from there.
It seemed like that. It seemed like he audibled it where it was going to be a zone play to the right, and it ends up being a zone play to the left. As you can see here, once the video starts, in my opinion, the backside linebacker is actually going unblocked, which I think may have been a mistake on the right side of the line. He almost had a chance to take Eddie Lacy down. Eddie Lacy breaks the tackle from number 51 of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. this is where I always talk about football being a game of inches. He puts his head behind Eddie Lacy. Eddie Lacy breaks it. If he puts his head in front of him, he might have been able to stop him. But great run, great tackle-breaking run by Eddie Lacy for a huge touchdown. A 44-yard run, longest this season for Eddie Lacy.
And outran the safety all the way to the end zone. So that's our Bills breakdown. Time for us to do our pick'ems.
Yeah, last regular season pick'ems. First up, we have Chicago at Minnesota. Vikings.
Oh, you couldn't wait.
And they're going back to Cutler?
Yes.
I'll still go Vikings.
I'm going to have to go Vikings.
I'm not picking either.
Well, I know Chicago's playing a mopey house cat at the quarterback, but
I'm not buying you anything for saying that.
Next up, we have Arizona at San Francisco. I'm going with San Francisco at home.
I don't think Arizona is as good as they played throughout the year. Third-string quarterback, I'm going San Francisco.
Yeah, I got to go San Francisco.
I'll take San Francisco with their third-string quarterback in Arizona.
just trying to catch up on the picks.
And last but not least, we have Detroit at Green Bay with the NFC North title on the line. Packers.
And, of course, Packers.
Got to do it.
We'll make
No
sure what
question.
Keith picked.
Stop.
Keith really did go with the Packers. We want to thank Bill Schroeder. Thanks for coming out and reminiscing for Keith. It was the highlight of Keith's
to see you.
Got it, buddy. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry
For
Christmas.
Bill Ferrario, Keith Roerdink, Jana Wimmer, I'm Brian Groff. Have a Merry Christmas. We'll see you next week when we have guest Cole Heckendorf, a Mosinee native who spent the 2009 training camp with the Green Bay Packers.
And happy Festivus.
Thank you for watching Fox 55's Green and Gold Gridiron.